Hello and welcome back to the Parc Fermé F1 podcast number 727. Oh boy, this is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camber. You know why I've asked you here.
Must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we're going to talk about Formula One news. That's what we do on off-race weekends. But before doing that, of course, I have to introduce my guest tonight, which means... That's exactly right. I got to go all the way to the right coast of America. And I promise you, if you're watching us on YouTube, we didn't plan this color coordination of shirts. But it's just how good she is. She knows it. And she knew I'd be wearing green. She wore green, but I like her shirt better. It is the lovely, the redoubtable Grace, how you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, Todd. I like that what we cover in the off weeks is news. Yeah, that's kind of what happens.
Yeah.
It's sandwiched in there somewhere.
There's a little bit of news.
I don't know.
So you're
somewhere.
doing well?
Yeah.
Good.
So I did, because I would be remiss if we did not get this somewhere into this story and we move to the end.
Yeah.
All right. So it is food related, so that's fine.
Good.
So last week, right, we were talking about the mysterious British condiment that Lando Norris was all excited about.
Salad cream.
Salad cream, right? So yeah, so shout out first of all to Dave for letting me know that it was salad cream that was this mysterious condiment. So then I wondered, Wegmans has an international food aisle.
Oh.
And they do in fact carry salad cream.
Looky there.
I haven't tried it yet.
Ooh.
Because I'm not sure. I mean, I guess French fries, it's like mayonnaise. I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. But
Paul said it was good with chips or crisp or
but
whatever the hell he calls it.
I think he meant actual chips, not French fries, right?
Oh, okay.
Because there's then some later discussion, like, so you mean French fries? Like, no, chips are chips. French fries are French fries, right?
Yeah.
But who puts condiments on their chips? I don't know. And salsa on like tortillas. But anyway, so if you have some salad cream recommendations... I now have 4.9 ounces of it that I have to eat in like 6 weeks or something. 8 weeks. You have 8 weeks to eat it after you open it.
8 weeks. Well, you better refrigerate that.
Well, I haven't opened it yet, but yeah, once you open it, you have 8 weeks. So
wow.
I don't know. It does say it's suitable for vegetarians. Well, that's helpful.
It's very helpful for vegetarians.
Yeah.
That's
well,
good.
I guess I had a friend who was vegan, and as she put it, just remember Doritos are also a vegan food. So
Ooh.
just because it's vegetarian doesn't mean it's good for you.
Yeah, there you go.
And
Wow.
so yeah, so salad cream. So I
There you have
will
it.
maybe try it, but I was just excited that because I remember that they had random weird British candy once. I think I was looking for like soy sauce or something or curry that was also in the international aisle. I was like, oh, weird British candy. Who wants that? Nobody.
Yeah. Who eats this stuff?
I don't know.
And they're looking at us and said, who eats Spam or Scrapple?
Okay.
What do you?
I mean, Spam is delicious. I can't
There you go.
knock that. I'm sure I told that story that I was at the Spam Museum, which is in Minneapolis. If you're ever
Yes.
in Minneapolis, go to the Spam Museum. It was a lovely time. And because that's where Hormel Foods is located. And I learned that my family eats ham loaf, which is basically like the real food version of Spam.
Ah,
Because it's just ham and pork shoulder mixed into like a meatloaf.
how about that?
And it's ham loaf. And that's what Spam is made of. So I was like, well, I guess I can't knock Spam anymore. My family makes that and eats that.
That's interesting.
It's delicious. You put some mustard on it, as is Spam, right? Like,
I'd try it with salad cream at this point.
I don't know if salad cream goes with Spam. I think like a nice spicy mustard goes great with some Spam, but
I wonder if the salad
rice.
cream is anywhere near a Cornish pasty.
no, I don't know. And I don't remember that ever on Great British Bake Off. Nobody mentioned making like their own salad cream to go with their pasty.
No.
But speaking of Cornish pasties, did you see that your boy Stoffel Van Dorn won the Formula E race this week?
Yeah. See, that's all he needed. He needed a little bigging up from us.
That's right.
And then he goes out and wins.
Mm-hmm.
And, there you go. So right now at the McDonald's in Kortrijk in Belgium, West Flanders, they're excited. They're happy. They're probably giving away Royales with cheese.
Mm-hmm.
They
That's
should
right.
be. That's good.
That's right. That, we gave him a little like bow toss, was going to, draw like a handlebar mustache on Stoffel's face, and he wasn't going to have it.
No, exactly.
Put the fire right underneath him.
Right. Put all new pictures of him up.
Yeah.
And that would be good. And then, after that, everybody could just hop over to Eepers and, go to the,
Yeah.
I sound like I've been living out in West Flanders, which of course I haven't.
I don't know. It's fine. It's nice.
Nobody
knows. It's fine. But anyway, so I thought that was nice. And then Jev won the other race.
Jev, yeah. Good for them.
Yeah, that's right.
And heck, winning a Formula E race. That's cool. Yeah. So there you go.
That's right. I guess, if people watch this on YouTube, it is just a lot of us like
head bobbing.
Yeah, I think it's funnier though when Paul's on, because Paul just sits there like
a cardboard box.
Well, he never joins in the head bobbing dancing like the rest of us. He just
Yes, Paul, you've got the personality of a cardboard box.
Oh man, that's rough. But I just think that's he could do
Paul's
a little
awesome.
head bob.
And I'm going to tell you why, because a lot of people give me crap for living in Missouri. And just, so you know.
Okay.
William money out of Missouri. Kill women and children. That's right.
That's right. William money out of Missouri. So Paul sends me, okay, so in the Ozarks, they're building a killer road track.
Okay.
And they've got the tarmac down, and it all follows the undulations. The Ozarks are hilly. Yeah. So it looks like it's going to be a killer street circuit. And Paul and I have been following it on Facebook, their page. And Paul just sent me a picture of turn 5.
Whoa, Ma. Oh, man.
Oh, are you kidding me? That's a hill. That's almost like Eau Rouge.
I was gonna say, it reminded me of the Formula Extremes I was watching. Like they come down, there's this giant hill that they come down. I'm like, holy cow!
Kidding me? I got to figure out a way that Paul can do some hot laps on there, so I can ride with him, and we go around that track, man. Because that track looks, it's like Ozark Motor Speedway or whatever. So if you're, people in Belgium are going, oh, how cute! They have a little racetrack.
Well,
okay, so it's not Spa, but look. It is super cool for us Missouri people, and I'm pretty excited about it.
I think you convince the racetrack owners that Paul Charsley is actually like Randy Probst, and they'll just let him test the track, right?
Right. Well, I think maybe I should reach out to him and tell him that, if they haven't already secured the services of Paul Charsley to commission their racetrack and officially get OSAT, then that is what they need to do.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. So that's somehow I got to figure out how to get some laps on that thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, there you go.
Paul knows people.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Should be able to do that.
He's in the paddock, bumping elbows with K-Mags now.
That's right. That's right.
He and K-Mags are like this. This doesn't do anything for podcasts. Oh, by the way, if you didn't know, if you listen to the podcast, I always say this at the end, but say this at the beginning. We are putting our podcast now on YouTube. All right. And so every once in a while, somebody will, stop by or find it on YouTube and say, oh my gosh, I didn't know you guys were doing the podcast on YouTube too. That's great.
Yeah.
So we are. So if you listen or a longtime listener and you want to watch two talking heads bob up and down, you can do that on our YouTube channel. And you can see all of our arm waving and see, I am wearing an Italian shirt there. Yeah. See?
That's right.
You see all my arm waving and, madness and how we tend to get.
And it's a big emotion.
It's always a big emotion around here. Ooh. So Grace, let's talk about some Formula One news, shall we?
Sure,
let's just dive in because we're going to talk about your team.
Nice, Ron.
Which is my favorite now.
Yeah. Right.
5-10 years ago, I would have been like, do we have to? Can we just skip this? I'll be back. I'll be back.
Nobody was talking about it.
Right? But now I'm in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, back then it was like, where is McLaren?
Where is Jessica Hyde?
Yes. So Grace doesn't understand that sound clip, but I keep telling her she's got to watch the British version of Utopia, and then she'll understand. Anyway, this just out of the McLaren camp. Best team manager in F1. Are you kidding me? Wow. That's a big calling, is it not?
Sure.
Sure.
No, I mean, it's kind of like Jeep trail rating. Yes, Jeep is the best trail rated vehicle because you made it up, right? So congratulations, Jeep.
Yeah. Yay, you won your own made-up award.
Good job. Good job.
Right. So, okay, now we got to be fair to McLaren here. Let's be honest. McLaren have made very significant strides over the last several seasons. And if you consider that they had $100 million fine over Spygate, which started their downward spiral. And for those of you new to the sport, Spygate is when McLaren stole all 60,000 pages of the Ferrari technical manual. And
it was like 40. Let's not get so crazy and dramatic over there, Ferrari.
Right. So that started the teams. Ultimately, you can connect dots from McLaren's downfall all the way to that point. And that goes back several years, but that was when it started the downward spiral. Then they went through a boardroom owner war that saw the ousting of aforementioned Ron Dennis,
Nice, Ron.
the longtime owner of McLaren. You had a meltdown with Honda, loss of their star driver in Fernando Alonso, a brief affair with Renault, layoffs, financial struggles that saw them sell off assets to gain cash, a new CEO, and a new Mercedes lump now bolted to the back of a chassis that was designed for Renault. I mean, you have to admit they've faced some very challenging times over the last several years. And that's just naming a few.
Yeah.
There's no telling what kind of challenges they might be facing with that, lake. They may not, they may need to dredge it. Who knows?
Don't dredge the lake. Nobody wants to know.
The circle people in the circle building, working
The
with
rectangle?
the rectangle building. The communication breakdowns they're
Right.
suffering. There's no telling. It could be crazy over there. So they've gone all through that, but the CEO, Zach Brown, believes much of their recent return to form amidst all of the financial difficulties is down to hiring Andreas Seidel. Now, that's quite an endorsement. They hired him back in 2019.
Yeah.
Hat tip, auto sport for the quote. CEO Zach Brown said, quote, I think the structure we have at McLaren works extremely well for us. Andreas and I have an outstanding working relationship. I think it's extremely clear what my role is, what Andreas's role is, and it's very clear to the team too. My job as CEO of McLaren Racing is to field the most competitive, financially sustainable racing team, not only in F1, but anything else we may venture into, like IndyCar, etc. I think my job is to get the best people in the business, and I think we've done that. I think Andreas is the best team principal in the pit lane, in my humble opinion, and to allow him the space. I don't know how to run an F1 team. It's not my competency. That's what Andreas is awesome at. So my job is to give him the freedom, the support, and the financial resources to allow him to do his thing. So Andreas has full authority to run the F1 team as he sees fit, end quote.
Yeah, and considering he spent, a year and a half now with just fogged up glasses, he's doing a great job.
How can he even see the team with all the fogged up glasses he's got on due to the mask?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Anyway, yes, because that was when I would wear, because I wear glasses, but mostly I have contacts in, but until you get it to the place where it doesn't fog up, but you can still see, that's a very fine position those glasses can be in.
I know. I have reading glasses on. You put that mask up there, they start fogging up.
I'm like, oh.
And then you got to pull it down a little bit, but then it's going to go over the tip of my nose. Oh, no.
Right. So it's a whole thing. But yeah, so I'm sure I told this joke already, right? Like during their car launch, I really wanted him to say that when they were like, Andreas, what do you think of the car? I don't know. I haven't seen anything in a year and a half.
Right. I haven't seen it.
I don't know. It looks great. I think that's Lando over there, right? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think for as much as I made fun of this story, but I think that absolutely. I think that having a CEO that's the opposite of Ron Dennis. I think this is going to roll into the later story. I think it's our next story as well. There'll be themes of a similar story about how you run a team. I think that McLaren, and I think with Zach Brown, has really rolled into success in the way that he supports the team. He supports people to do what they need to do. I mean, I guess I say it a lot, but like, we like to think about Formula One and any sports really as like different.
Yeah.
Because to us, it's like a dream, but to them, this is their job. And so don't you prefer a job where you like, you know, your boss supports you in meetings, or you can ask them questions. They're like, that's a good idea, Grace. Why don't you, you draw it up, the proposal, and we'll talk about it. Like, that's what you want, supportive management. And I think that McLaren finally has that. I think they have the ability to support the different members of the team and the drivers, which is always what is most visible. But I think that Zach Brown, it comes all the way down from Zach Brown. I think that's just the way he runs the team, and it's in complete opposite to the way Ron Dennis runs the team. And I think Adrian Seidel is absolutely the guy that kind of is like, all right, he knows how to like take Zach's big picture, which is kind of how he took his quote. Like, that's not what I do, right? I give you this big vision, and then you're the guy that comes in and does, this one piece or this part, and you learn how to put the right people in there. So I think absolutely. I think they're a combination.
Zach's role is the CTO, is just managing resources, removing roadblocks, and allowing, like he said, giving him the space to do what it is he does. And we've seen this F1 team management structure change over the recent years with more of a matrix approach to management, consolidating the responsibilities among multiple senior people instead of the old school approach of having one team boss responsible for, kind of like the Ken Tyrrell days, or even the Frank Williams days, where you have one team boss and he kind of manages all of it. And now we're starting to see these different types of senior roles where those responsibilities are now well within that sort of channel. Like if it's chassis people and it's aero people and engine people, and we're starting to see Formula One structure, and it only makes sense because there's just a lot more money involved with these teams, and to operate at a level that competes with Mercedes, you'll have to raise your structure, your management structure, and your resources, and it's a real business. It's not a couple dudes in the garage building a car anymore, right?
Right.
To those ends, clarity over which roles reside and which senior managers' to-do list is important. And in the case of McLaren, it seems to be working out really well. Quote, I think it's very important and crucial to the success of an F1 team to have clear responsibilities and also clear accountabilities. I'm very happy with how we have defined responsibilities with McLaren Racing, and I'm very happy with Zach being the CEO of McLaren Racing and being my boss also. He gives me, in the end, the freedom and the support I need in order to bring my style and my experience and my way of how I want to set up F1 team and lead it. And that's simply great. We are aligned on a lot of topics in terms of how we see the steps we have to make within the team. I think we can also see in the last 3 years that we already could make some good steps, but we also know that we're far away from where we want to be in a few years' time, end quote. And that was obviously from Andres himself. So speaking to what you're saying, Grace, it's about giving him that freedom and those the resources to do that. Now, if you juxtapose that with like when Ron was there and Martin Whitmarsh, it was always like Martin was the kind of the guy that was going to do that, but it was always like he had the reins constantly, pulled back and the bit between his teeth.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I think the other thing is that we often, I think, again, especially in sports, we want the like, I don't know, benevolent dictator model, perhaps, or we want the the team owner that's just this tough guy, and you're either in or you're out, and But I think you can be supportive and still be critical. I think one can be supportive and still, do a postmortem when races don't go well in this example, right? So I don't mean that to say that he gets mad for sure, but he's also the first person to go, okay, so now how are we going to improve this for next week instead of just like getting mad, right? So I just think that that's such a, I always call it as a, being here in DC, right? We get a lot of the Washington football team, but Dan Snyder, who's the owner, is a team manager like that. And I always use the example of one of the coaches found out he was fired because the Washington Post called him for a quote. That's not how you want to find out that you lost your job, right?
Yeah,
That's not
right.
very supportive. And I think that Zach Brown is the opposite of that. Like, it's how a job interview is supposed to go, or not a job interview, but your performance evaluation, right? They tell you, I do a lot of work in contracts. They tell you the same thing. Of course, I have to rate my contractor and I have to rate them honestly, but if I have to downgrade them somewhere, it shouldn't be news to them. When they read the end report, shouldn't be the first time they go, oh, we didn't do that right. They know, I told them, they've known it all along, just like in your performance evaluation. I think that McLaren has finally gotten to a position where that works, where they can talk about both positives and negatives and find solutions and support the drivers and have a successful team in a way that just wasn't there. And I think the role of Spygate can't be underestimated. That absolutely pulled the rug out from underneath that team.
Yeah, for sure.
It took them 10 years, 15 years now almost to recover from that. So don't steal other people's technical manuals, and definitely don't take them to Kinko's. Yeah, that's what we learned here. Don't get caught with them.
Don't copy them. Don't take them down to Kinko's to get them copied.
Yeah, use your own facilities. But
yeah, it's interesting, and I also have been really impressed, and not that. I mean, it's not unexpected because Zach comes from a motorsport marketing background, and he was incredibly successful at it, and I've been really impressed in this day and age of no sponsors and all the teams just living off the prize money. Zach, on the contrary, if asked Zach, and I think, I have interviewed him a few times in the past, and I think he would admit that the sponsor dollars are a lot less than they ever have been, that they're difficult to find, they're difficult to get. The concept of a title sponsor just isn't a reality anymore and those things. And I think he would admit all of that or suggest that. But he's still bringing in sponsors and doing a pretty good job of it with McLaren, and where other teams are really struggling. So it's just, having that extra 5 million, having that extra 10 million or 600,000 or whatever you're picking up, but finding ways to fund that team. I just think this past year with COVID and everything, that team was financially in very difficult situation, and that had to be a lot of sleepless nights for Zach, I would imagine. And
yeah, I mean, right, people weren't getting paid; they were shutting down the factory. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. And so, no team boss or CEO of any of these motorsport teams had a peaceful night, I'm sure, and trying to figure out how this is all going to play out. And some of that came out in Drive to Survive, but very difficult situation. I think McLaren's done real well. And to watch McLaren's, they stopped the slide. They were going down that spiral that Williams has gone down, that Haas has gone down. Well, McLaren went down. They stopped it, and now they're building back up. And it's, I'm elated for them. I think it's terrific.
Although Drive to Survive, I felt like very quickly got over that.
Yeah, they kind of jumped right over that because there wasn't a lot to talk about. Yeah,
I know, and I get that, right? Like they don't want to dwell on this too much, but it was just like, oh my God, we're in Australia. Oh my God, COVID. Oh my God, McLaren has COVID. Phone call. Zach Brown's like, yeah, we're ready to go. Where are we going? Like, like over in like 10 minutes.
I know. It's
COVID,
like, yay,
done.
Austria. Woo.
Let's go. I'm ready.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that happened in between there.
Sure was. But they just kind of like, we mentioned it and we moved on,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. We mentioned COVID and we're ready to go. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right. I mentioned the bisque. We just yada over the rest of it. So
right.
Fine.
So anyway, I thought that was interesting.
I think so too. I think that's good. I like this. I like where the team is going. And it's not just because they're my team. I think that this is what we hope would happen to Williams or to, Williams mostly. I was going to say or any other back marker, but no, I really just wish it for Williams. So
Right. Let's see. In other big news, James Allison out as technical director. And that was my headline, which I got accused of being clickbaity. I said, that's a very clickbaity headline. That's clickbait.
Oh, because he's out but went somewhere. Like he didn't like.
Yeah, right.
It's not like Patty Lowe. He didn't get like
Right.
drugged down the pit lane by his ear by Ronda. I know
Right.
that's not what happened to Patty Lowe, but
Right.
he didn't get drugged down pit lane by his ear, right?
Yeah, right. And
He
a few
got a
people,
new position within the team.
yeah, a few people who are taking time out of their hectic day to remind me that a chief technical officer is a higher position, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And
Sure,
this is a clickbait headline, and he's okay. So let's just take a step back, and I'll explain the reason I said Allison is out. Meanwhile, there were a lot of other headlines. Allison steps back from day-to-day role at Mercedes. I mean, there was a lot of other headlines that are clickbaity, and their websites are monetized through click-throughs. Ours isn't. So I don't ever write clickbait because it doesn't do a damn thing. If one person shows up our website or a million, it doesn't matter to me because it doesn't matter. We're not, funded that way at all. We're funded through Patreon supporters, and that's it. So yeah, did I sit down and burn the midnight oil trying to craft a clickbait? Of course not. What I said is Allison is out as technical director, and that's actually very true. That's exactly what happened. Now, the reason I said it that way, sorry, my daughter's hitting me up for more screen time.
Oh, it's all right. I can just fill this with other conversation about James Allison or anything.
My daughter knows this is my daughter. She knows I'm doing a podcast. Yeah, come on, give me the screen time.
I don't know.
Anyway.
They know.
Oh yeah. It's just catch Daddy's in the middle of podcast. He'll give me more time.
we used to tell my mom we'd wait till she was really tired to ask her things that we knew she'd say no to. Like, I'm gonna go to the movies with my friends. Okay, sure.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So James Allison has stepped back from his role as technical director to take a newly created role of chief technical officer.
Right.
Now, yes, I was accused of using clickbait titles for my story on this, which was Allison out as technical. Fair enough. But let's take a peek at why I use that title. Quote, this is from James. Quote, I firmly believe that people have a shelf life in senior roles in this sport. And I have chosen to step away from my role as technical director in order to pass on the baton at the right time for the organization and myself. I have enjoyed 4.5 wonderful years as technical director, and it has been a special privilege to lead the technical effort of the team in that time, end quote.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound like a quote from a guy who said, man, I am so excited to be promoted out of technical director into the CTO role. This is such a huge promotion for me and such a, showing me so much trust in me. The organization is. No, that doesn't sound like that at all. That's not what that quote sounds like. Right? Yeah. And here's what Toto Wolff had to say about it. He said, quote, we have known for a while that his time as technical director will be coming to an end this year. And I'm delighted that we have been able to shape this new role to keep him within our motorsport family. He will be an important sparring partner for me in the next years, and I know that we still have much to achieve together, end quote. Mm-hmm. Now, I mentioned in this piece I wrote on the website that James is a brilliant guy and knows the reasons why he is not continuing in the technical director role. But keep in mind, folks, he didn't turn lead into gold when he was at Ferrari, all right?
Right.
And these quotes don't seem like the kind you would offer if this was a big move upward. But that may just be part of the angle of Mercedes. I don't know. That may be how they're positioning this, is to confuse idiots like me. But this doesn't sound like that kind of situation. The fact is, many say that moving to a CTO role is a promotion, and that may be true, but this position didn't exist at Mercedes before this announcement. And Toto even says that they knew he was stepping out, and they were able to create a new position to keep him at Mercedes.
Just because it's a promotion doesn't mean it's a good idea, a better idea. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I've worked in enough places where
Yeah,
sometimes the guy that
exactly.
makes the most money is the guy that you don't want working on anything. That's why he makes the most money, because then you can just kind of shove him over here.
And so I've heard many suggestions that this is a big move that will have James focused on the future cars, the 2023, 24, the engine change. And all of those complimentary comments about, oh, this is huge. He's not, they're moving and this is a big promotion. He gets out of that silly technical director day-to-day thing. And now he's such a brilliant mind that he's focused on the new engine regs, the new cars, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, fair enough. And that may very well be true. And it's all very flattering. And I understand that. But I'm wondering if there isn't more to this story. James left Ferrari after Ferrari failed to become what they had set out to do with James Allison as technical director and Fernando Alonso. Okay. And he left Ferrari and he stated it was because he was tired of being away from his family working in Italy. Fair enough. Totally understand that. Anyone could understand that. And I wonder if he's had enough of traveling the world and being away from his family, and especially now that there's a 23 race schedule, right?
Yeah, and I think if you're Mercedes, you're not worried about right now. You're worried about 2022 and 2023, right? So
right.
I think, so first of all, I mean, my immediate thought, whether this is something James Allison wanted or not, right? Like a positive or negative as far as he's personally concerned is one thing. I don't panic nearly as much because it's Mercedes. Like if this was Williams or Haas, I'd be like, oh shit, somebody really, again, that is more like Pilo, right? Like then you really would be like, whoa, what's happening, right? So the fact that Mercedes is kind of moving people around, is less concerning than if it was a smaller team or a team that was in trouble. But I do think that just like with drivers, so again, we often talk about how teams will have like the veteran driver and the young driver, right? And so some of that is your continuity plan, right? So that when the veteran retires or, decides he's had enough, you have somebody young that's learned under that person that can then fill it in, right? It's the Felipe Massa learning from Michael Schumacher, right? So that you then have somebody that can fill in that seat that's experienced because they've learned from this veteran, right? The same thing happens on the management side too, right? You always want to be thinking about your continuity. You always want to be thinking about who's going to be the guy on the pit wall and who's going to be the guy running headquarters when you're about to run into, rules that are purposefully designed to undermine you, right? So, and the engine change is a big one and they've been dominant, but only in the hybrid era. So what does that mean for Mercedes? And I think I'd want him, even though it's a CTO role isn't something they had before, but that's where I'd want somebody of that caliber.
Well, look, I don't know. I'm just speculating and I'm kind of connecting dots with his history and
that's what we're here for.
Said, and I'm reading both of these quotes, and neither of these quotes even have I guess a hint of, oh my gosh, I cannot believe they actually offered me this huge CTO position. This is not how that sounds, right? And James's is basically sounds very like I'm stepping away. And, I really enjoyed it. It'd be nice to continue to work with him and blah, blah, blah. And Toto very much the same. And so I'm not trying to drum up conspiracy theories, but having been scolded on social media for my headline, that's why I put that headline that I did, because he's out as technical director. Now, the way I kind of see this is he may not be the show horse anymore, but they want to keep him on the ranch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, because A, you don't lose that experience. B, you don't want to go into your competition.
No.
Right. So you will do whatever you can to keep that in-house, right? Whatever that looks like. Absolutely. Because that would be the worst is if you went back to Ferrari or to McLaren or to Red Bull, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, imagine, if you will, Christian Horner, Adrian Newey saying, yeah, I'm done doing this, blah, blah. Well, he did. He said he wanted to go do boats. He wanted to work on supercars
for years, right?
Christian figured out a way to keep him on the ranch, because the last place you want Adrian Newey doing is going to your competition. And to be honest with you, James Allison is a brilliant, wonderful guy, and I love his videos and his very, gregarious, nature to him. I think he's fabulous. But and he knows where all the bodies are buried at Mercedes. And there's no way you're gonna take him out of that role because he doesn't want to do it anymore, and then just set him loose to get So they're gonna create this role as CTO.
Sure.
So, color me reactionary, folks, but I've seen enough press releases. I've read enough, comments from teams about moves like this. I'm telling you that this was a way for him to get out of that role because he probably didn't want the grind, because that's why he left Ferrari. That's what he said. And I feel like that CTO role keeps him on the ranch, allows him to focus on those future cars and the future regulations where the team is off doing the day-to-day, and he can kind of big picture this thing out a little bit. All that's probably very true. And I heard Mark Hughes briefly. I didn't listen to the whole cast. I never have time, but I had to listen to Mark Hughes over on a podcast with Ed and Scott the Race, and all very succinct comments, and they're good guys, and I don't disagree. I just think this is not exactly what people were telling me it is. So that's just me. It's my opinion. I'm going to stick with it.
Well, I mean, sure. I mean, no, I don't disagree with that. I think that, right, the last thing you want is him going somewhere else. And, I mean, I think we've all been in positions that are, not that I ever worked for a Formula One team, but, some people are cut out for that kind of like fast pace.
Yeah.
Chug and burn. And I learned real quick after a couple months, that really isn't for me. And so you can, and I think the thing is that any human can only do it for so long before it's just like, what has happened to my life? Like, yes, this thing's great, and I've accomplished this great thing, but I've accomplished nothing else. Right. So you're trying to find that balance. And so, I think that's true. I think you don't want him to go somewhere else, but I saw it as, regardless of, like I said, regardless of if James wanted it or not, or somebody pushed him into this position, or however it happened, I think it's a smart move because it keeps him at your team.
Sure.
And it keeps him looking at what you need him to be looking at, which is the future, because that's what would worry the pants off of me if I was Toto Wolff. Or anybody else at Mercedes.
Absolutely. I think it's a great move by Mercedes to keep him on the ranch.
Yeah.
And you're right. We all do. Everyone. I mean, we all go through different seasons of life.
Yeah.
And different priorities become important. I guess different issues become different priorities at different times throughout your life. And that's perfectly, it's to be human, right?
Right.
I mean, not everybody is a happy fun ball like Will Buxton. I mean, that guy's like an everlasting gobstopper, right? I mean, he's like a globetrotter and seems to have, a well of energy reserve, and he probably loves it, and that's what he does, and that's great. James Allison may have family, may have, just the grind of traveling and flying around the world.
He just wants to sleep in his own bed.
Yeah,
like,
is that so wrong?
Right? Like, is that terrible? No,
So who knows? But anyway, that's my take on it. And technically, yes, he is out as technical director. So there you have it. And that is out of the day-to-day grind, right? That's out. Next up in the news. Oh boy, breaking news. That's right. The Hulk is at Aston Martin. That's right. Nico Hulkenberg has joined the Aston Martin team as the reserve driver. Now, on the surface, locking down a reserve driver like Nico makes sense. And the team will rely heavily on his sim work and car development skills. By the way, those same skills they said that they were getting from Vettel, by the way. Hat tip BBC. Nico said, quote, "It's great to get this deal signed up with plenty of notice. Last year, I didn't have as quite
like 4 days or something.
Yeah, 48 hours. He goes, I didn't have quite as much time to prepare for jumping in the car. I'm really pleased to once again work with this team, with whom I have driven many times during my career. It will also be interesting to help develop the team through the season, and I'm really looking forward to pulling great lap times out of my arm sleeve."
Mm-hmm. So, remember everything we were just talking about with McLaren?
Yeah.
The opposite, I feel, is what's going on here at Aston Racing Point. I think this is, I mean, you haven't even gotten through the whole story yet, but it was just like, when I heard this story, I was like,
damage limitation.
like it's been one race. He's been with your team, what, 2 months, 3 months? Like,
Yeah.
damn, people, like this is cold. I mean, you should again, I think that I think drivers, I think in the sports world is similar to how people talk about quarterbacks. Of course, you have to have a good reserve quarterback, but you can have such a good reserve quarterback that, you're Jimmy Garoppolo and you're looking over your shoulder every 5 seconds because they're just waiting to hire another quarterback to replace you, right? Like, so you don't want that either. And so I think you have to be careful about how you hire reserve drivers or how much you promote them. And because it can be really detrimental to you as a driver and therefore to your team that you hire a reserve driver and you make this big hoopla about it, as opposed to like most of us don't even know who the reserve driver is. Like,
Right.
I don't know. Did we all know that Stoffel Van Dorn was Mercedes reserve driver until they called up George? Like, I don't know. I guess I knew that, but it's not something I'd like think about. Do I know who? I don't know. Ferrari's reserve driver is. It's not Mark Genet anymore. I don't know who it is. This isn't really something we think about as much now that you don't have Friday testing, which
Yeah, but Nico is Aston Martin's reserve driver.
I do. And so that's why that makes me a little nervous that if it's somebody I couldn't tell you who's in that position at the other 9 teams, then maybe there's something wrong here.
Yeah, you would normally go out and get a young driver as part of your development as a reserve driver. They're inexpensive. They may even pay for the opportunity.
Right.
But they're paying Nico for this one.
Yeah.
Now, Lawrence is a shrewd business guy, and Otmar has been very vocal about the deficit they have this year and the rule changes, alleging that they were intended to hobble low-rate teams. But there's also this notion that Vettel may not be able to return to his glory after a dismal testing session and first race. And if you put your tinfoil hat on just right, you might be able to read between the lines of this statement from Otmar, quote, Nico proved last year that he could jump in the car and perform superbly at a moment's notice. Now, with additional scope for preparation and integration, we know we can rely on Nico to do an excellent job, end quote.
Okay, so first of all, I know you saw bullet points, but I'd like to interject here. Then why the hell didn't you just keep Perez? If you were so freaking nervous about Vettel and you're so freaking concerned 3 months into this, one race in, that Vettel's not your guy, then why did you get rid of Perez, you bunch of idiots, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you aren't going to give Vettel some time to settle in at a team, which even a veteran is going to take time, it's not one race. We all can't be Yuki Tsunoda. It's going to take him a little more time to settle in there. Why didn't you just keep Perez, right?
A lot of people were asking that when it happened.
I just think this is a terrible, again, this is the opposite. Everything I said about Zach Brown, I would apply the opposite to Lawrence Stroll, because I think that he is more like a Dan Snyder. He is the kind of guy that's like, you're only as good as your last race for me, and your last race sucked and you're out. But I just think... Personally, running your team like you're Red Bull isn't a great model for Red Bull, and it's not a great model for any other team, especially when you aren't Red Bull with Verstappen. So I don't know. I just think this is a bad idea. If this is true, if my tinfoil hat is correct, and they really mean this as like shots across Vettel's bow, this is a terrible idea.
I don't know. If you're on the outside looking in, it does sound like they reckon Nico can jump on the car and be quick right away. Would you think that Lawrence is covering his bets on Seb here? I kind of feel like he is.
I think it's a bad idea. I think this is, he's one race. Like, this is
I know. And if you were wondering if bringing in a seasoned veteran, which you just hired a seasoned veteran,
right,
and you're going to bring in another one as your reserve driver, and you think the presence in the garage is going to put pressure on Vettel, I would argue, I don't know that Vettel had any more pressure from Charles Leclerc at Ferrari.
Right.
Then the whole team behind Charles Leclerc.
Right. I don't think
it's not going to work.
Plus, I don't think you understand Vettel. Like, not like I know Vettel personally, but again, he doesn't strike me like, so we often talk about like the Jensen Buttons or the JVs that seem to do well when their contract is on the line, right?
Right.
I don't think Vettel's that kind of guy. I just have never seen him be like successful only when he's about to lose his job.
No.
And so I just don't think this is a strategy that would work for him. I just think Lawrence Stroll is like barking up the wrong tree here.
He's back to adjusting his junk, I think.
I don't
There you
know.
go.
I just think that I wish I had like the meme of that look Otmar gives the camera in Drive to Survive, which is like, you know, like Lawrence Stroll, here we go. So I don't know. I just think that this is just not how you run any organization. Now, that said, I'm not Lawrence Stroll. I don't have any money. So what do I know about running a
Right.
successful business? I just think that undermining a driver like Vettel, who you spent all this money in and all these resources in, and you're only going to give him 3 months. I mean, testing was like 2 days. Like, it's not like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's harsh.
I just think then why didn't you just keep Perez? Because then at least you knew what you were getting.
Yeah, he's a known
What's
entity.
the point? I don't get it. So,
I don't either.
and I think it's not gonna motivate Vettel. This isn't how
It's
that kind
not.
of personality gets motivated.
I don't think so either. Let's see. Oh, in other big news this week. Yeah, I know. It's the Miami Grand Prix. Yes, they're going to vote on it again. So a year ago, a local group of activists filed a racial discrimination lawsuit against the proposed F1 race around the Miami Dolphins Stadium in Miami Gardens, the city of Miami Gardens, and that put the brakes on the entire process. It now seems that the city council is headed to another vote this week, sponsored by Mayor Rodney Harris. Now, the interesting part is that Rodney Harris last year was just a councilman. He wasn't the mayor. He was a councilman last year, and he voted against the race. This year, he is sponsoring this vote and supporting it. The plot thickens.
I wonder why that could be.
Well, we'll get to that. So this year, the race is a little different. Last year, they were saying, "Hey, we're going to do this. We're going to have a purpose-built track around the Hard Rock Stadium,
Caesar's Palace. I mean,
yeah, or whatever,
Miami Dolphins Stadium.
and so we're going to do that, and that was basically it. And then these activist groups in Miami Gardens were very much against the race. And so this year they've come and repackaged this race in a different sort of wrapping. And this year it's being promoted as defined opportunities for local residents and locally owned business to participate in the event and promote the city as the first majority African American city to host a Formula One race of the 23 cities around the world. They are also going to pay the city $5 million and create the F1 in schools programs for local children in schools. And I don't know, there was something about this when I read it. And this is coming off of the heels of the outrage over the Saudi Arabia. And I was reading this and I thought, I am curious about how all of this will be received by everyone involved, from the residents of Miami Gardens to Formula One to fans to spot. I'm just very intrigued on how it will play out, I guess, with the vote and everything else. Because after a year of Formula One's in racism and their pre-race moment and recognition that Lewis Hamilton fought hard for, the programs that F1 says is committed to, its diversity and equity program, and those kind of things, it would seem now that they're almost claiming that this race is a part of their We Race as One diversity program in a way. And I'm curious how folks might see this positioning as the race is still being referred to as the Miami Grand Prix. It's not being called the Miami Gardens Grand Prix. It's the Miami Grand Prix.
Nobody knows where Miami Gardens is.
I know, but they're
Hoboken, New Jersey. Woo!
Right. But they're using this characteristic of Miami Gardens to really promote this. And I thought, that's interesting too, because I'm not sure. I guess when I look at it, it's being referred to as the Miami Grand Prix. And while predominantly African-American city is hosting it, I'm not sure this is in equal parts with comparing that to 23 other nations mentioned that are hosting races. So no one promotes, one of their races as a predominantly Muslim or a predominantly Chinese or Russian or Japanese city or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of curious in how this will be received by the activist groups that are still fighting this. Either way, I mean, the same concerns are still there. And the locals are not happy about the race in their city. Some, anyway, not all. And here's a quote from Betty Ferguson, who is kind of leading that fight against it.
Yes.
And she said the Miami Gardens activist groups led by former Miami-Dade Commissioner Betty Ferguson say they'll continue to fight against the race from going ahead. It goes against everything the community stood for. Ferguson told this to the Miami Herald. I don't know who the council think they are representing if they support this resolution, but it won't be the homeowners, end quote. So, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting, it's a touchy situation and interesting.
No, you know what it is? It's safety. They're arguing safety. We bring this up all the time, right?
Yeah.
Because if I tell you, it's the same reason why whenever somebody's trying to build a casino, which everybody knows is a terrible idea and leads to a lot of addiction. But what do? Oh, but we're going to give the money to the schools and we're going to put it in a lockbox so that only the schools can use it. It's bullshit. It's safety. This is just somebody trying to get their way. And then when somebody like Ferguson or anybody else says, oh, we don't like this idea, they go, what? You don't want to help little kids? You don't want to help Black communities? You don't want to help small businesses? It's the safety argument. This is bullshit. Nobody gets into a race for any of these reasons. You lose money. This is like having the Olympics. No city gains money from having the Olympics. That's not why you have the Olympics. And if you do have the Olympics for those reasons, you're a fool. And I don't know anybody that's ever made money off of having a race in their town. None of this is going to happen. This is just their way of being able to have some argument that is safety. What, do you want people to die? You're against safety? You really can't argue that. So when I saw this, I was just like, that's all this is. This is just some cheap attempt to get what you want on the backs of people who are having real struggle. And you're saying, well, we're just going to put in an educational lockbox and we're going to build this casino anyway. And none of that goes to education. Where does the money go?
I just felt like the people in Miami Gardens deserve a little better.
I agree with you. I think this is totally blowing smoke up their ass.
It's kind of a, I don't know. I kind of feel like you need to treat people with dignity in this thing. And
this
and
is
to
the
me,
opposite of that.
Yeah, and to me, look, if last year there was these activists, they filed a suit, they didn't want the race, and the team that was trying to do the race said, well, we're just going to do it, and then it came, to loggerheads, and this lawsuit was, and then they put the brakes on it. A year later, they said, no. We did that wrong. This year, we're touting this as a predominantly African-American city hosting this is the first predominantly African-American. I don't know. If I was a resident, I would have a very hard time not to feel patronized with that.
That's 100% what is happening.
Yeah. And,
your real life cause, your everyday struggle is being used by somebody in order to sell a race that's going to suck. That's great. How could it not feel patronizing?
Yeah,
I agree with you.
I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. They deserve better than that. Work with a more comprehensive program to have a more, evergreen approach to this and strategy to this. And it just, I don't know. And then, on the heels of Saudi Arabia, where everyone's claiming this is horrible, it's a human rights, record that's dodgy, and this is sports washing, I kind of feel like this is a different version of sports washing in a way, it's almost, I don't know.
It's being convenient. It is patronizing. I think that's absolutely the right idea. If whatever it's Mad Libs, right? Whatever the cause is, they just fill that in there. It's not actually about any of these things. These are just the arguments that they can make that people can't argue against. So those are that's what we're going to fill our Mad Libs in with. But if tomorrow it was something else, they'd fill it in with that.
Yeah, I was trying to put myself, just kind of mentally, I'd never be in the same position, but I was putting myself kind of mentally, if I was a resident who last year was part of this committee that was against it for whatever reasons, be them really sound reasons or maybe not, I don't know. But if I was one of those residents that felt like this wasn't a benefit to the community, and then we fought back against it, they stopped. A year later, they came back and said, hey, we're doing this as to be the first predominantly African American city to host a race, and I would think you've just come with the same thing with a little bit of money in a different gift wrap.
Right.
You know, I don't know. But
I agree with
you
you.
guys think out there. I'll be very interesting to see how how the local residents of Miami go, because even if they approve it and it goes through and the race happens, it will be called the Miami Grand Prix, not the Miami Gardens Grand Prix, which they just made a big deal that Miami Gardens was a first predominantly black city to host a race, but it won't be couched as a Miami Gardens Grand Prix. It'll be the Miami GP, and everyone will go. They'll stay in hotels downtown Miami on the oceanfront, and that's where all the revenue will be. And yes,
Correct.
if I'm part of the local community, I'm looking at, okay, well, what kind of jobs might come out of this? What kind of long term, if it's a race that's going to happen for the next 10 years, okay, well, then maybe we've got some recurring revenue. We've got some opportunities we can be involved. It create jobs and all those sort of things. And I assume they're doing all that work, but maybe not. I don't know. I just think it's tough.
I think that, it's why the New York City race was supposed to be in Hoboken, New Jersey, right? Because you can see the skyline in the background, and won't that be lovely? Nobody's staying in Hoboken; they're all going to stay in New York City. So I agree with you. That is exactly what's going to happen. I don't think I've ever been to Miami. I've been to Miami several times, but I don't know that I've ever been to Miami Gardens. If I have,
No, I haven't either.
I didn't know it. So. What does that say?
Yeah, I don't know.
I just think
keep your eye on that. I think the vote is this Wednesday, so that'll be interesting to see
I
how
think
that all plays out.
It's gonna. I think, and if terrible racing is a legitimate reason, then I would vote against it for that, because it's going to be a terrible race.
Look, all Miami Garden activists,
aside,
all that aside, man. I don't know. I have really mixed feelings about a parking lot Grand Prix.
I mean,
they're going to build a track and it's going around the stadium and all that kind of. I don't know.
I'm with you, man. I don't buy it. I think the other thing too is anybody here should call Baltimore. Like, why don't you talk to them about their IndyCar experience? I think that you'll find some similar parallels that just didn't really pan out for the city of Baltimore. And I think it's only worse if it was Formula One.
If Stephen Ross is looking for a place, don't build a track in your parking lot. Come to the Missouri, and we have a road course here, the Ozarks Motorsport. It's almost ready.
Paul Tursley will give you a tour.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think so. So I think I don't know. I would be intrigued by anybody. I'm always skeptical about these kind of things. I just have never seen it pan out when politicians pull out these kind of things. It never seems to really pan out that way.
It'd be interesting to see what happens. All right. Let's see. What time is it? Hey, it's time for this week's fun/random fact. Oh boy, aren't these exciting? Everybody's like, ugh. I recalled this. I don't know what brought it up, and I had to go research it and find it. I could have just called our friend Sean, the stats man, and he would have known instantly. But I had to go actually look it up. But I was reading something else, and it came up about this team, and I thought, and I was trying to remember kind of when they were in and out and that kind of thing. But anyway, so I really look at it. Just if you're new to F1, you kind of might find this interesting. So there was a team in Formula One, and back in August of 2002. The Arrows team failed to turn up at the Hungarian Grand Prix, and I remember that. And while you might suggest that track might make you think about skipping it too, that's not why Arrows didn't turn up. In fact, they were never seen on an F1 circuit again. They just didn't show up to the race.
And that was it.
Yeah.
We're gone.
Yeah. So it would be very similar to when we get to, midsummer of this season, and Haas just didn't show up, and that was it. And
like
they didn't go to the rest of the races.
Like the Brigadoon.
Right. It's like Brigadoon. Exactly. Sing a bar or two. Yeah.
Nobody wants that.
So I think that's a good hashtag for this podcast. Hashtag Brigadoon.
There you go. Sure. Or, I did want to, before we close out, I did want to mention for those of you, the four other people who care about all the MotoGP I talk about, but Portimao is this weekend, which now, as you Formula One fans all know, is a good track, always a good race. But your friend and mine, Mark Marquez, will be back after a year of being off. So,
does anybody have anything for Mark Marquez?
So, if you were thinking, I don't know, Grace goes on about MotoGP here a lot, maybe I should watch one. This might be the weekend that you watch a race because, you know, if anybody can just like hop on a bike and win shit again, it's Mark Marquez. So
It's Mark Marquez.
I think we're all a little like,
yeah,
okay, right? So
yeah.
he did some pre-season testing, but then, you know, didn't show up in Qatar. So he's gonna be in Portugal. So
oh boy,
get your race ready.
I saw. I just reading a headline. I didn't even have time to read the story, but it was. Who's the young kid that's like the phenom in MotoGP 3? He's like 16 years old.
I don't watch. I don't know. I can't help you.
I don't know, but he's like, I think he may be a Red Bull rider.
That sounds probable.
But he's
I
like
don't
all
know.
the rage,
I don't.
So anyway,
I don't know. I only follow MotoGP.
Yeah,
I
well,
can't even watch. I can't even watch World Superbike anymore.
No, I know. Yeah.
When did my life get? I don't know. I thought quarantine. I was gonna have more time. I have less time somehow. I don't know. But
ain't nobody got time for that.
No, but yeah. Well, that's good to know because I have their streaming. I'll look it up. I'm sure they have clips, highlights, articles, stuff. I can look into it.
Sure.
So I'll do my research. But I'm just saying that you know, Mark Marquez. This is your opportunity to see. What is either going to be spectacular and great or a total fail because Mark Marquez only has 2 speeds.
Yeah. It's true. All right. Well, make sure you watch that. And so, all right. Well, that does it for this podcast. Be sure to stop by the website, theparkfermé.com. Share your opinion. Just do it to decorum and civility. As always, we could not and would not do this podcast without the support of our Patreon supporters. So thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. And if you don't support this podcast, but you enjoy it, please find one of those Patreon supporters, pat them on the back, because it is by their support that you get to enjoy this podcast. And if you're feeling so gracious that you would like to become a Patreon supporter too and keep the podcast going, we certainly would appreciate it. You can do that at our Patreon page, which the link is at our main page. Also, if you like the podcast, go over to iTunes, give us a good rating over there, give us a little love. We are on other podcast platforms like Stitcher and all the other ones, but you can give us some love over there. And until next week, when we do, I was wrong last week, but I do know that next week we will be reviewing a race with Paul Charsley, and we can have, can have him on, and we'll find out what kind of, things he made over the last couple of weeks, Chef Paul.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, speaking of Chef Paul, so we had a bit of a diversion last week with Hell's Kitchen, right? Mm-hmm. This week's episode was also good. I don't want to, spoil.
Whoa!
It's pretty good, right? Mm-hmm. Good episode. I mean, again, Black Jacket's always a little nervous. These last few episodes are always a little tough. But I did want to say that I do think we need for the soundboard when they did the blind taste test. Those of you who are familiar or not familiar, right? So it's in every Hell's Kitchen. He blindfolds and puts earphones on the person, then feeds them like random foods, right?
Right.
And then they have to tell him what it is, and whoever gets the most points, wins the challenge, right? And this is always that person often usually does really well, comes towards the end, right? Because they have a really good palate.
Right.
Well, I like that this time, because usually he just like taps them on the shoulder, right? Because they don't know when to open their mouth, right? Yeah. And so then there's always some humor to it because they're blindfolded and have earphones on and they just like open their mouth and it's kind of, sometimes it's a bit jarring. But anyway, I like that this time Gordon Ramsay, for whatever reason, even though he's never done this on like the last 27 seasons of the show, he used like a choo-choo noise like you would use with toddlers, like to get them to open up. And he did it not once, but he did it multiple times. And I don't even think Gordon Ramsay has like small children anymore, but it cracked me up every time. Flip doesn't even watch Hell's Kitchen with me, but I made him watch it because it was funny to watch Gordon Ramsay, this grown guy who's known for like yelling at people and cursing at them and telling them they're donkeys and all these things. And he's going, choo, 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 with a spoon to try to get these people who can't hear him or see him open their mouth. Like they're toddlers.
You're telling me your husband doesn't watch Hell's Kitchen with you?
No. I mean.
Oh, no. He's got to give us his jacket. big boy. Yeah,
think-
he's got to go home.
All right. Well, I mean, oh, look, but somebody who does watch it with me just showed up.
Look at that. Nice.
Yeah, look at that, Levi, always
Ah.
making an entrance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he does that during my, my meetings at work. It's always fun
Yeah.
when he just appears.
It's all very Paul Charsley of him.
Yeah, so I just think that, yeah, he's not really into the competition shows like I am.
Ah, okay.
I mean, he'll kind of watch Project Runway with me, but not really.
Oh, boy.
He just does it because I make him. But the choo-choo noise, I tell you, that was hilarious.
Yeah, that was good. I
And
thought that was funny.
nothing funnier than a grown man who cusses at people for a living, going choo choo choo. People are toddlers.
Yeah, Gordon on TikTok is hilarious when people stitch him with other people. It's just, and he's like, "Oh no, what are you doing, you donut?" This is so good. Yeah, it's so funny.
I do enjoy the Gordon Ramsay for sure. So,
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
but yeah, we'll see.
right.
3 more
Yep.
episodes.
I know,
We'll
it's
see how that
crazy.
goes.
All right.
All right.
Well, be sure to tune in next week when we talk about the Grand Prix. We'll find Paul, we'll dust him off, and
That's
we'll bring
right.
him on the show, and we'll do that. So until that time, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camper, saying so long, Grace.
See you next week.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.